News Plus, I'm Chris Bianchi. We're going to go out now to a shot from Eagle County Regional Airport where President Joe Biden is due to land in a few moments as he's expected to designate Camp Hale as a national monument, and would be the first such national monument designation for President Biden so far in his administration. Camp Hale, of course, in the 10-mile mountain range just outside of Breckenridge, kind of an extension of the Mosquitoes, and of course the significance behind Camp Hale is it was a center for mountain and winter warfare training back during World War II. It's where the 10th Mountain Division trained in ahead of the Second World War before they were sent over. They trained with skis as well as with kind of with rock formations and getting prepared to go traverse very, very mountainous terrain, including northern Italy as well as the Alps of Austria there during the Second World War. And now about 54,000 acres, a little less than 54,000 acres of the Camp Hale Monument will be declared federal land, and that will preserve its history there. And that's what President Joe Biden is flying in for. And of course, also as well, there are undoubtedly some political undertones here. We're less than a month before the midterms, and we have Senators Michael Bennet, of course, up for re-election. He's running in what appears to be a fairly tight race against Republican challenger Joe O'Dea. And Michael Bennet will be appearing with the president here today, along with John Hickenlooper, as well as Congressman Joe Neguse, all three of which are being credited with helping make this a formality. So again, what we are expecting here in the next few minutes, we're going to go out to that shot now from President Joe Biden due to land at the Eagle County Regional Airport as he is expected to declare the Camp Hale National Monument in the next few moments. We're going to go out to that shot right now here with President Joe Biden, again, due to land in the next few minutes. And thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. And what you're looking at, some images right now of Air Force One, which has touched down at the Eagle County Regional Airport. And we're expecting the President Joe Biden, to step out onto that ramp here in the next few moments as he prepares to head over to the 10-mile range and to declare the Camp Hale National Monument, his first such designation in office. And a stream of folks that I admittedly do not identify immediately right now, although there's clearly some press members there, but we are expecting the president and perhaps a few members of Colorado's congressional delegation to step off here in the next few moments. Camera panning on over here as, again, Air Force One touching down within the last 15 minutes, touchdown just before 11:30 Mountain Time. This is, I believe, the primary ramp where the president is expected to walk out to, now being set up here at the Eagle County Regional Airport. Just to give you a little bit of background here, and again, the reason for the president's visit. First of all, of course, the primary designation that will take place. I mentioned the Camp Hale National Monument. Again, Camp Hale, going back to what exactly it was for those of you that might not be familiar with it, it was a center for mountain and winter warfare training for the Second World War, for specifically the 10th Mountain Division. And any history buffs, if you are one, you might remember that the Second World War, before the famous D-Day landings of June 1944 and 1943, the Allied forces worked their way up through Italy, and there were some fierce battles in central and northern parts of Italy, especially northern Italy, which, if you've been, that's where the Alps begin, the Alp mountain range begins, and a lot of 10th Mountain Division forces trained here in Colorado before they were deployed overseas, and made and fought some very, very fierce battles there in northern parts of Italy, some very famous battles there in the northern parts of that country, eventually extending on up into Austria as well. And so at Camp Hale, which again we expect to be designated a national monument today here by the president, at Camp Hale, a lot of those soldiers were able to train in snow, in winter-like conditions, in mountain-like conditions, and as a result of that, that was part of the credit there. And there is the president himself, President Joe Biden, walking down the stairwell there as he makes his visit and again prepares to make that declaration here in the next few minutes. And you can see, back to the camera, that is John Hickenlooper, who is currently shaking hands with the president. There is Michael Bennett, who is shaking hands with the president as well. Can't quite recognize who that is, but as obviously in the far right there, Governor Jared Polis, who is shaking hands with President Joe Biden. Two of the three folks that you're looking at there in the camera shot on the left, Michael Bennett and Jared Polis on the right, up for re-election in a matter of few weeks. And of course, the timing of this visit from President Joe Biden a few weeks before the midterm elections, it is not lost on us here at 9 News, but of course, what you're seeing as well as the president commiserates with Jared Polis and Michael Bennett there. Both Polis and Bennett have been credited by History Colorado, as well as a lot of historians here for the 10th Mountain Division, for helping get this in place. Also, the Continental Divide Trail Coalition specifically mentioned the work of Hickenlooper, Bennett, as well as Congressman Joe Neguse, for helping make the Camp Hale National Monument a thing. And by the way, you can see Congressman Joe Neguse on the far left-hand side of your screen there. John Hickenlooper next to him, and then Michael Bennett, his back to the camera, blocking our vantage point for the most part of Joe Biden. Biden speaking with Bennett, who is, of course, up for re-election in just a few weeks as he faces what we expect to be a challenge, a difficult challenge, perhaps from Republican Joe O'Dea, and on the far right, Jared Polis, of course, running for re-election against Republican Heidi Ganahl. Again, I mentioned some of the political part of things because there is obviously a political undercurrent to the visit taking place just a few weeks before the midterm elections. But Again, we expect President Biden to head over to the Camp Hale National Monument to declare it. And about 54,000, a little less than 54,000 acres. For context, it's a lot of land. That's about the size of Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia itself. So, again, a fair chunk of land here, about 54,000 acres, will be declared a national monument, which means it becomes federal land. It has been criticized at times by Republicans, specifically Lauren Boebert, saying that it is a federal land grab, and it did take quite a few years, a bit of time to get this declaration in place. But also worth noting, going back to some of the background here about Camp Hale specifically, Camp Hale, this, as mentioned, was a World War II training site, a very famous World War II training site for the 10th Mountain Division. But of course, with it taking place, the Second World War taking place in the 1940s, segregation was a thing. And so recognizing the recognition, the overall recognition of the landscape being, of course, segregated, and the exclusion that obviously underholds all that, there is historical context and plans for more inclusivity and a bit more of a collaborative landscape within the Camp Hale National Monument. So, point being that there will be some addressing and some mentioning within the expected national monument of the segregation that took place at Camp Hale, as it served as a major World War II training site, specifically for the 10th Mountain Division that went on to fight in Italy as well as through the Alps during the Second World War. Now, where specifically Joe Biden's going, then, what you're looking at right now, this is the Eagle County Regional Airport, and they're going to travel south towards the 10-mile mountain range and the Camp Hale site, and that's where the ceremony will take place, and we'll see this later on today. Again, you can see the traveling parties here from left to right. Again, we got the Colorado's two senators, Junior Senator John Hickenlooper on the far left, who won election, of course, back in 2020, and there's Congressman Joe Neguse from Colorado's 2nd Congressional District there on the left, as he and Joe Biden part ways, and President Biden hops into the presidential limo and gets ready to depart the Eagle County Regional Airport, and Michael Bennet hopping in with the president, and, well, there is no significance lost there. Again, it's Bennett who's expected to have the toughest race in about a little less than 4 weeks' time in the midterm. So it's Michael Bennet who goes into the seat with Joe Biden for visibility, political reasons, you would imagine. But Bennett, again, has been credited by the Continental Divide National Scenic Trail, as well as several other groups, for helping facilitate this designation that we expect to take place later on today, as Camp Hale is a national monument. And by the way, I mentioned this a few times, but want to kind of reemphasize this again. This is the first such declaration by the president making Camp Hale a national monument. He hasn't done that yet so far in his year and about 8 months as President of the United States. That first declaration going to take place later on today, as the president and Michael Bennet in that presidential limo getting ready to depart the Eagle County Regional Airport and make the, off the top of my head, it's about a half hour, 45-minute drive to where the Camp Hale National Monument is. So that's where, I should say, where the Camp Hale National Monument is expected to be here. Again, it hasn't officially been declared, but that's what we're expecting to take place in the next few minutes. There's Bennett. You can look through the window there. That's Michael Bennett's back to the camera, and presidential limo off and about to give way. By the way, the president is expected to give remarks at about 1:30, so there'll be a bit of a tour beforehand, and then the president gives his remarks at 1:30, declaring, or what we expect, again, that declaration of the Camp Hale National Monument. There's been some question about how far or how big the monument will be. So we may get some clarification on that here at 1:30. But for now, we'll leave it there as President Joe Biden leaves the Eagle County Regional Airport and heads towards the Camp Hale area and expects to declare it a national monument. So that's where I'll leave it here. But thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. We'll have continued coverage of the president's visit to Colorado here on 9 News Plus, as well as on 9 News for the rest of today.